else wasn't going to arrive with one, I would have.
That's probably a fair assumption that we weren't.
It being a little late at 6:09, I call the March 11th Finance Committee meeting to order. Do we have anyone who would like,
No.
in the chambers, that would like
No.
to make a public
No.
comment about anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Anybody at all on Zoom? Carrie?
Nope.
Oh, that's the director, the senior center. Seeing none, okay. Look for a motion to approve the minutes of February 25th, 2026,
So
the
moved.
new version.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Six, aye, no, no's. Okay, presentation, 2025 financial policies. What do you got, Mr. Helen, or whatever?
Yep, I'm just pulling them up right now, Mr. Chairman. So basically, we just left them as is. It's not as if we're not proposing anything. I think, I don't know what to tell everybody. It's
Some questions.
if, per the conversation before the meeting, if the group wants to recommend any adjustments or changes or edits, looks like you do, Mr. Conley. It looks like you're ready to rock.
Well, I spent some time reading it, just some updates, and I left my notes at home, which was wonderful.
Oh, nice.
It goes to, let me think, let me go back through here. This is called dead air on television, huh? Basically, the things that I bullet pointed were some thoughts about big equipment. And to Brian's point about the $100,000 for the fire truck, well, $100,000 a year now.
Yep.
That was policy in 5 years ago, you could buy one for $500,000. Now, a standard pumper is $1 million, one or two. Should we be adjusting those? Or do we just leave them alone and consider it a down payment account, for instance? And then along those lines, there's a lot of grumbling about putting that kind of stuff into the department budgets, which is unrealistic for the really big stuff. I mean, you can't take the fire department's $7 million budget and drop a $2 million ladder truck into it the next year.
Right.
But would it, to satisfy the, I'll call it an argument, about having the cost in the department budget, could the debt payment be part of the fire department, police department, school department budgets?
No.
The town comptroller and the school business administrator say no. Thank you.
Why not? It's just
You wanna-
another expense.
What, both, why don't you both, John, come on up. Yep, let's get the town and school perspective right on the mic. Yep. No,
No, you spoke too.
it's all in.
Oh, no, that's
You were
fine.
shaking your head.
So the debt needs to be classified separate. I suppose maybe we could, but then you'd have to move some money around for like the financial statements and all the balance sheets. All your debt needs to be segregated separately.
Right.
I was just thinking, that would at least put the expense cost where it's being used, that's all.
I would have to go back and we can pitch this to our auditors. I just want to make sure with the financial statements that,
Yeah, and I know it could blow up
Is that what
budgets.
you were saying?
I mean, it could blow up the
Financial
school
statements.
budget, I mean, the explosion would be loud. But, you know, there's how many schools still on there, and that kind of stuff.
John is saying the same
Understood.
thing, that you check with the auditors too,
Yeah.
just on
Yeah.
the statements, just to make sure that,
It was just a thought.
No, it's
I
a-
mean, at least
it's
it would
fine.
allocate the expense to the department using the equipment, that's all.
Okay,
I think, part of this is shuffling chairs a little bit to shuffle chairs, right?
But the council
The-
seems
but-
like it wants to shuffle some chairs, that's all.
Well, they may, but the pie is not big enough. To your original question of whether you should update the field stabilization or the fire stabilization accounts, and whether those should be more because now those products are now more expensive, is a legit issue, right? The bigger issue is, even if you upgrade those
We're
numbers,
not meeting it.
you're not making any yield because we have no financial money to pay for any of these things anyways. Like the turf fields is a better example. We're putting 150,000 away, there's whatever's in the account, it's over $1 million. I think when we started that, we expected maybe a $1.5 to $2 million field replacement 8 years ago, and now that's probably a $2-3+ million endeavor. So, you know, I think these types of financial issues are hitting every city or town. But, I mean, if you wanted to update the field stabilization to 200 and the fire engine to 150 or 200, it certainly would help. But again, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to recommend those things because I don't know where you're going to get the money to sock that money away.
Along those lines, you have the ability, or do we, or does whoever, have the ability, it's supposed to be 100,000 for the fire truck.
Right.
Could we vote to do 50?
Sure.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so we could change it on the fly, basically, if we wanted to. Still do the basic concept of the policy, but at either a reduced or a higher level
That's correct.
should a cash cow come in?
Well, if healthcare comes in lower than we think and you might have a little extra free cash, that's exactly it. These are just policies, right? They're not laws, they're not regulations. We try to, it's a roadmap. But, you know, I mean, doesn't mean, you know, I'm just saying these are policies, right? So even if you have 100,000 a year, you could put 20,000 away. You could put 5,000 away.
So
You
that's
could put
something-
1,000, you know, you could just continue to contribute something.
Okay, that answered my question. And the same applies, we don't have a stabilization account to buy ambulances either.
because we use the
Ambulance
ambulance
receipts.
receipts.
I understand that, and that's documented somewhere that such a percentage of receipts go
That's
here.
Isn't it?
Mass General Law, I believe.
Or do you just, when the bill comes in, you write a check out of that account?
It's right
And
here.
I suspect that's.
It's number 13. I was like, I think it's in the policies. It's in the sheet.
Well, it is, but there is no stabilization.
Well, that's because receipts reserved for this, like parking and certain other ones, are statutorily set aside.
Right.
So,
And-
right.
Oh, sorry.
No, go
We
ahead.
do put 125,000 aside every year for the ambulance out of the,
And I'll make my point again. When I started, ambulances cost 150 grand, they now are 500 grand.
But I think at one point, when Mr. Sandini was here, we had recommended 100,000 in this policy. We changed it to 150, but in reality, we did 125 because that was like the safe zone for what we could put aside.
right.
So there's no, okay. I just trying to account for the fact that these, and Brutus's trucks used to be 100 grand, now they're 500.
So your point is taken. Where do we find the funds?
Well, I'm
To
not,
do that.
we're
So-
reading a policy. we're
Yes,
not
you're,
reading
exactly, and what
anything.
Jamie is trying to say is you can change that amount.
Yeah.
Then
If
we
we
would also change, Mr. Chairman, starting in FY '24, appropriate 600,000 in the annual operating budget for roads and sidewalks. Well, that got lost in the
We haven't
override
done that.
failure. So we should appropriate, 50,000 a year for roads. Because we've already cut 500,000 plus in the last 2 years.
The other question I'm gonna ask, and I ask every year, OPEB, we have millions of dollars stuffed in it. And I know Mr. Sherman will be here in a couple of weeks to explain it,
Mhm.
but it just always, what's the balance now?
16 million.
15?
16 million
$16 million, just sitting.
and change.
And how many teachers are on it? That's basically retired teachers?
No. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. That's for
Okay.
people that, down the line, we had to put some kind of savings together for Evan Lacasse, who's 30 years old when he retires. Because we just, so some communities are fully funded, there's only a
One.
handful,
I was
one,
gonna say.
Two,
Yeah.
Newton,
Wellesley.
Wellesley,
They
sorry.
did an override for it.
Yeah, so we are in a great position, but we cannot start using it yet, and that isn't, that question will get brought up to the actuarial Sherman on May 18th.
It does include school employees.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It does include school employees.
Yeah.
It's townwide healthcare, basically it's healthcare for retired Franklin employees, school and town.
We also have an OPEB trust committee, and we have 2 members of residents that are in these, and we'll be meeting, I believe it's set up in May as well, and that's a public meeting.
Hotel motel tax and cannabis, are they both, are there changes coming? I don't think hotel is changing much.
Well, they're gonna vote on a home rule to allow Franklin to do 8% next week. Because the legislature for 3 years has not adopted to allow us at the local level to raise our hotel tax from 6 to 8%. And I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but we've been lobbying for this in anticipation of the World Cup. So we kind of missed the boat. And the reason why we did that was because hotel rooms are like $800 or $900 a night in town for the World Cup because there's demand. So if we were making 8% instead of 6%, I think we'd be able to bring in another 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever. So they're gonna file a home rule next week, which allows just Franklin to do that. It won't pass, but it'll show hopefully our legislative delegation that we're supportive of this and we should be granted that option to do it. So I don't see anything in here changing on either of these, other than the hotel motel, if we can get that authorization to raise it 2%. And as I told Senator Feeney from Foxborough the other day and Senator Roush at a small business roundtable, because of the kerfuffle in Foxborough, if there's a World Cup package coming through the legislature at some point,
Nice place to
wink,
have.
wink, stuff it in there, because I know Foxborough would love the additional revenue. I know Milford, Mansfield, and all those communities would probably want the additional revenue, so they still have time. So I'm hopeful.
Cannabis is stable, I assume.
All hotel, cannabis, and meals, all last year were record-breaking amounts.
I remember a question, that's for me to remember, but, I wrote on my notes, is this just retail sales, or we have some producers here that sell to other people,
Yeah,
I think. if I'm not
just retail
mistaken.
sales.
It's just retail, so you can't,
Just retail, not medical, because Netta, half of their store is medical, that's tax-free. And we don't get any revenue from the manufacturing facilities. We did at one point, but not anymore.
okay.
The state changed the law.
Indirectly through the assessment to their taxes.
Correct. Well, to Steve's point, great point.
Steve,
We're-
talking to the microphone.
We're he was just trying to give me a assist. We do get obviously revenue and tax base from new growth. All of those facilities have improved the value of those properties, so we have gotten revenue in that fashion.
Actually, I think I saw groundbreaking on the one that was approved, the building approved, and hadn't been built yet, on the other side of Grove Street.
160, yeah.
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 Okay, anybody else
Me.
have any questions on the policies?
So 2 things. One, I know that we're kind of going over them quickly, but most of the members on the committee are new, and I'm wondering if it makes sense to do half and half in 2 meetings so that we can deep dive, because I don't know if everyone even knows where to find the policies.
Well, they're on the website.
I know,
I found them today pretty easy.
but I don't know, I mean, most of us are new, right?
Yeah.
So I think, it might be helpful if we have an opportunity.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I don't, if everyone else feels comfortable
you
with
guys.
it.
No, that's fine, you can put it on an agenda at some point.
Just that way people, if you send the link, then people can access the policy and maybe come up with questions that they may have.
Yep.
Because I feel like people may have questions if they, unless everyone feels they're all set, then I'll just ask my questions and
No,
be
I
done.
apologize, I did not include the link when I sent this out on Friday, there was a lot going on with the
Yeah.
changes of the grant.
No,
so-
nothing, and I think most of the time, like Jamie wrote, it's kind of one of those things you just kind of go over quickly, but with the new committee, I think it probably makes sense for us.
Sure.
And then to tag off of your comments, George, about the stabilization funds and the minimums. So I hear what you're saying, and then I also hear you say that at what point it doesn't really matter what we allocate, because we haven't been able to meet that thresh because of our budget situation. So where's the revenue? And that's where I come in. So I did some research after our last meeting about retiring old machines and engines and whatnot. And I know that so we have a new engine that we've approved at the last meeting. And then they are going to go out and dispose of the old one. And they do that at an auction and, with all the language or whatnot. They do a great job of that. My proposal would be that the money that is then generated from those sales of whether it's parts or machinery or whatever, go directly back into the stabilization funds.
My
Yeah.
controller is coming up.
Please do, because I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So that is not allowed by law, but what you could do is that all that funds has to go directly to general fund.
Yep.
But then when it turns into free cash, you
To
could
transfer.
then you could transfer
That's
it,
what I
but
meant.
it would have to be voted. Okay, you just can't put it there, it would need to be
That.
voted.
Yeah, no, I
So,
know that, sorry.
okay.
I
No,
probably should
that's
have been
okay.
more specific.
I was just thinking, no,
We
you
just want to
gotta
make
vote
sure
it,
that
right.
we're
Yeah,
clear.
I understand that. Sorry, I assume everyone understands the things that I understand in my head. It's a problem. It's a fun problem. So that would be something that I would look at. So when we are, I think that's kind of what you're talking about, George, right? Like, how do we then continue to keep that money? So that's revenue that we don't expect, right? So we're not budgeting to spend that money, but when we do dispose of that fire engine or police cars or any kind of equipment, then that money goes back into our general fund, and then I would make a policy or a recommendation for a policy that proceeds are then transferred from the general fund back into our stabilization funds. And then that way, we would be able to potentially meet some minimal contributions every year, even if our overall fiscal outlook looks terrible.
Yes, understood.
You good? No? Yeah, go.
So I get what you're saying. But I think the challenge will be, we didn't take any money out of the stabilization fund for the new fire truck at the moment. Like, we recommended not to do that in the last meeting.
Just for year one.
Well, so far. So it would be kind of odd to now be replenishing that fund, which I think we were hearing from the fire chief, like, they actually don't expect to need to buy a fire truck in the next couple years at least, when we have like a snow and ice problem. And when we have other things that I'll say are higher priority in today's situation than saving for the fire truck rainy day future. So I think like that's probably why it goes to general fund and you have to vote it, because like you want to put it towards the highest priority thing at the time. So like that would be the ideal, is like fire continues to roll into fire, and I think that's kind of your point as well, of like we have these budgets that are all like intermingling, and then maybe it's unclear as to how much of our actual overall bucket is going to each department. I think we have the same problem in the free cash capital allocations, right? It's like we have things in there that are not capital. Like the fire truck, fine, like that one like
Right.
belongs in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But recurring purchases of tasers that you're gonna need for your, re-equipment of your stuff, like how's that any different than pencils at school, right? It's not, it's just equipment you need to continue running your service. That should all really be an operating budget, but it's not.
We're not there right now.
The reason it's not is just because we don't have the money in the operating budget. It's not because there's any like logical reason to put it there instead of the operating budget. And that's where I think some of this gets very confusing in budget season, is because all these departments have these asks that they're counting on getting money from free cash to offset their operating budget. And like, I get that it's a little bit of like a cart and a horse, and as Jamie was saying, I think before the meeting, like you could quickly go back towards this, like then departments start sending bloated budgets that say I need 300% of what I'm ever gonna get, and you have to whittle it all the way back down. So like that doesn't make sense either. There's gotta be a middle ground of like, hey, when you put your budget forward, your operating budget,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the 5 things that you know you're gonna ask for halfway through the year from free cash, like you need to put those in at that time and say, hey, I'm anticipating an ask for these things there. So we could at least quantify it. Like we could at least say, okay, you know, whatever, you're asking for 5 million in your operating budget, but you really need 6. And you know that now, and we're just pretending you only need 5 to say the budget balances, but we need to give you some portion of another million later. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, but I think that free cash is not quantified, right? So once the budget is
Sure.
approved, your line items are fluid, right?
Yes and no.
Mm.
I think what we saw in the last one was like, yes, except like we're paying in a 5-year agreement we already made for tasers. Like it's every year we have to pay that.
Yep.
We're already in a 5-year agreement. We have to make the payment this time. But like, we could try to vote no on it, but like, and then what? Like,
No, but I
in-
think
in-
we're budgeting for that because we know it exists.
It's coming out of free cash. We're literally on the fly saying.
At free, okay.
We must just have it, we hope, but we've already signed an agreement that says we're gonna pay that amount every 5 years, like every year for 5 years. So it's a bit of like, makes no sense, like we agreed to pay.
Right.
But
I
don't
guess
have the
my
money when we
concern,
agreed,
well,
if that
my
makes
concern
sense.
just becomes that money from whatever the proceeds are from the fire truck, and, you know, this is not, I'm not slighting you, Jamie, but the
no.
money goes into your general fund, right?
Not
And-
mine.
Well, the general fund of the town.
It's
Jamie's
just killing that
personal-
perception, Jen.
I'm sorry.
Getting that on the
We
record
did kill
clear
your
as
slush
day.
fund. My apologies for that. So, but I think that then it becomes this, it's discretionary, right? Like you're not necessarily, so we lay out a budget, we commit to the budget, there's fluidity among the lines once the budget is approved, right? Yes, we have transfers or whatnot that are voted on by the town council, but there's not this oversight that there is when the budget first goes in. And if we are ever going to get to a point that we're not funding those things out of the operating budget, we need to figure out a way to sustainably look long-term to build up our stabilization funds, right?
Or move those things to the operating budget
Which is never gonna
and
happen.
have those departments.
I mean, I'll be
have
in a
to figure
retirement
out-
community in Florida before that happens.
I mean, I don't know that that's true, right? Like,
Mm.
like on the sprinkler system, yes. On $65,000 worth of tasers, like, I don't know. Right, like, that's a line item that could easily fit inside of our operating budget at its scale.
Well, not really, because we're down police officers, right? So like when you hear the chief talk about his needs and the numbers and all that, yes, he needs the tasers, but if there was an operating budget that supported the needs of the department, it would also encompass some of those things too, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it would be us rebalancing where we're putting money, because we would be saying, okay, we know we need the tasers. We're not saying fire a police officer to get tasers. We're saying, we know we need the tasers in that operating budget. Now we have a problem to solve across every line item in the whole budget. Somewhere we need to come up with $65,000 because we don't have it, right? Like, it doesn't
Mm, yeah.
necessarily have to come out of police. It could be coming out of, you know, anywhere else. Jamie's salary, it could come out of Chromebooks. It
I
could
mean,
come
I'm
out-
sure I
they're
could
not in
find it
there.
if you give me a
They
few
could come out
hours.
of anywhere, right? Like, it's not a like foregone conclusion that it means that an officer has to get fired because it has to be police.
Mhm.
And I think part of the problem
there's-
with the capital is we end up skewing different departments' operating budgets in a certain way by forcing them into capital. Like capital requests.
The other way, if you put
To your point earlier, I mean, you'd actually get to what is your department cost? Because you'd be putting all the department costs together by department, right? Like the fire truck debt.
I think
you could
that's
say
the budgeting mechanism
Yeah, but
that
that's,
you used.
we're, right.
Yeah.
You need debt and interest in one section. This idea, and I know it started a little bit with the healthcare issue, because some people came out and said, oh, we want to put healthcare in every itemized budget. Okay, so why would I ask Linda how to 50, you know, if there's 50 accounts, why are we doing that, right? And the reason why, and I don't think I'm being coy here, it was optics, right? Which bothers me, because optics should be, we don't have enough money to pay for the value of services we had. That should be the optic, not doing this, right? I think what Jen's bringing up is an interesting idea, and I think things like this have been floated before, where there's like an incentive to say, if you're gonna surplus the fire truck or cruiser, could we use those revenues to then offset the cost of the cruisers next year. So say you sell off 5 cruisers and say you make $25,000. Well, is that like a down payment on your future cruiser purchase? Is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, because he
The-
said that
well-
he replaces, he
Right.
asks for like a
But-
handful every year. So
That's
I know
correct.
there's not an immediate need for a fire engine because the replacement on those is different, right? But at the end of the day, like George said, what's 500,000 now is 1.2 million by the time we need to order a new one. So if you're not looking at sustainability over the long term of how you financially manage these, and when you get into this idea of like, well, we didn't use reserves, so we're not gonna replenish reserves, is a very dangerous mindset if you're looking for long-term stability and the ability to financially manage these big projects. So that's where I would say, I know it's not gonna cover it, right? But it looks at and it gives us a different opportunity to kind of manage those expenses that we know are coming. It's like it's like a 5-year outlook or a 10-year outlook, you know what I mean?
The flip side to Jen's argument is it doesn't really raise new revenue.
No.
Right? So you're not growing the pie by any means. You're kind of just moving things around and maybe pitching it in some sort of way that makes people feel like there's a correlation that they can kind of understand. But we're selling cruisers every year. We're there's tons of vehicle surplus whenever we let go of a dump truck each year, whatever it is. We usually sell it for very cheap. It usually does not make a lot of money. It's usually worn out parts that go to a junkyard for some of this stuff, right? Obviously you see used cruisers out in the street every once in a while, they go to auction, but it's not increasing the revenue. So the irony is that what Jen's describing kind of already happens. Right, like where you go out and schlep off, say 6 vehicles a year, you get that. Those things we had during the pandemic, the air filters. We were surplusing all those. Jana and her predecessor surplus desks. I mean, we can't give them away for free, but we have to by law try to sell them. And you get very little revenue on that, and our free cash numbers generally every year have some level of surplus money in it. So.
I guess just to
Yeah.
be clear, I'm not saying like it's a bad idea.
No, I
It's
know.
an ideal world, like definitely. It's just we also are going to have more immediate things that are going to come up, and then we're going to have to say, okay, should we prioritize the fire truck in 5 years or the snow and ice problem right now? Right? Like it's going to get robbed before it can get deposited. Is basically like I think the inevitability based on our current budget situation. It will
Losing
get
flexibility.
used to something else. Sure, it will get applied elsewhere because we will determine that that is a higher priority than like saving for the rainy day fire truck in 5 years. That's just the reality of our budget right now. But like in an ideal world, if you had the right amount of money, you would be saving for every fire truck on a schedule that says we know we need this many in 100 years. We know we need to buy this many. We're gonna save so that we always have enough at the time that we buy. And like you do that on all the things, on all the cruisers, on all the tasers, on all the fire trucks. We're living more paycheck to paycheck than that.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yep.
Need to increase revenue.
Yes.
But if it's not there to spend, so it's, well, I'm not gonna debate it anymore, but it's kind of one of those things, like if it's not there to spend, you don't spend it. It's not a solution choice, right? So you have to look at other ways to solve your problem,
Bingo.
right?
To Carrie's point, where is additional revenue going to come from? Are we going to choose to do more advocacy at Beacon Hill? Are we going to choose to do an override? Are we going to choose to do a debt exclusion? Are we going to choose to try to do the best we can with NIMBYism and say, we understand there are concerns when you're a neighbor, but, we still need to grow and develop as a community without having to go through lawsuits, appeals, dragging every project out for years upon year. Like, I think at some point in your budget meetings, this is a little bit off of policies, but I think it's kind of like,
Well, I think it relates,
I
because
think it's,
the
I think it
policies
does relate.
generate it.
Thank you, I do agree,
Right.
but where is, what, and you're gonna realize the answers to that question are very far and few between. Like cannabis, when there was a no override thing 10 years ago, okay, well, we went out and became the only game in the region on cannabis. It wasn't like we were waving the cannabis, flags all over the place, but everybody else around here prohibited it. And we saw that as a revenue opportunity and ended up being one of the best economic development stories in town. So what's that next frontier of growth? What's that next frontier of where we can get those kind of revenue options? if I had the answers, I would have already laid them out, but I think the point is those answers, you know, the window of where you can grab that is going the opposite direction. We can't go to the federal government and lobby anymore because they don't have any money. And we have an income tax question on the ballot that will take $6 billion out of the state budget in November, right? So I think, I mean, there's very few choices that we're coming down to. So I think at some point, you know, during the budget hearings, I think, and tonight, I think it's a good topic for the Finance Committee to discuss.
Is the OPEB health insurance, is that mandated by statute? Like, did the government decide that?
Yes, but they don't really enforce their own rules either. The Commonwealth has a huge OPEB liability, and they don't really do much about it either, because of the same things as us.
So
It's really much more of a, instead of a, you know, there are aspects of it in state law. There's also aspects of it that are more regulatory in the sense of, I think auditors, accounting firms, and a bunch of those folks have said you have an impending financial crisis on your hands at some point with healthcare, and it looks like they were right, based on what we're seeing coming in the next couple of years, right? And so we're held to those standards with auditors, and essentially what it does is, and it's also value for bond rating agencies. They've taken this issue on huge in terms of rating your bond health. So some of it's industry, some of it's law, like the OPEB trust fund that we formed is through state law. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
So when you say it has to, we're trying to have it be fully funded, is that what you said?
Yes.
What does fully funded mean?
There is, so there's math with an actuarial that I do not understand, and that's why we paid Mr. Sherman.
You have a deficit of 75 million.
Yeah,
75 million is your fully funded number. There'll be an updated number on May 13th, but it'll be somewhere between 70 and 80 million.
We'll be underfunded.
And it'll be underfunded, and we're at like 20% funded, whatever the number is. We're in the top 10% of communities who are prepared for this. 90% of the communities across Massachusetts they don't even have trust funds set up.
So it's.
But
to
we
get
also
to
are a
that
larger
number
organization.
By
Right.
a date?
by the,
Yeah, it's just like pensions.
That number will continue.
All that is in law. They mandate when you have to fully fund these obligations.
Right.
But the law can change. With pensions are a perfect example, right? There's a law that says you have to the county has to fully fund the pension system by a certain date. But then there's ripples in the economy, then you're 80% funded, 75, 70, whatever, and then eventually there'll be a problem, and I think it's 2036. And then eventually the legislature can pass a law to say, oops, no, it'll be 2040, be 2044, be 2050. So they kick it down, and they play a game with everybody, which is good, where they try to get communities to participate to fully fund the law, but also they realize the competitiveness under Prop 2.5, could mean sizable job loss. It could mean a destruction in quality of life services. So they don't do it willy-nilly, but every recession, usually there's some sort of overhaul afterwards. But when they say fully funded, it means you fully fund your pension system. That's on the county level. When they say fully fund your OPEB liability, that's on the municipal level. And so whatever your liability is projected to be, which in our case is like 75 million, you should have 75 million in an account ready to go.
Okay.
Only Wellesley has that, and maybe Newton. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's Wellesley and Newton. A couple of them are like 80, 90, 100% fully
So
funded.
if we didn't fund it one year, if
Yep.
we decided we're in trouble.
Yep.
And we need more teachers, you can choose.
We already did that.
we already have done.
We already wiped away all the money in the last two override failures. So we
Okay.
used to have $1 million in our operating budget that was going to the OPEB trust.
Yeah.
Now we have 100. So over the last 2 years, the cuts that people saw, 900,000 of those cuts were OPEB liability trust cuts. In addition, we didn't fund the free cash policy for 2 years in a row as well. So we've gone 2 years without making any contributions to the OPEB, I think one year we did 400,
Yeah, then
2
we
years
keep
ago.
it.
So
Yeah.
we made the modest contributions, but because of the override cuts, almost all of that's out of the operating budget now.
And if you remember, there's a resolution for 450,000, which is 10% of free
Right.
cash, that was put on hold
Yes.
till we had some concrete
Right.
numbers with insurance.
This is
So-
all like the equivalent of if a private citizen has a 401k, your financial advisor tells you you need to be able to live till 90, that's how much money you need to
Or
like.
100 like mine
me,
does. And I
right?
go,
Like-
100,
Yes.
Gene? Really?
But that's
But
what
yes,
it
you're
says,
correct.
right? It's like
You're correct.
actuarial work says that 75 million is enough
Correct.
because we never die as a town. So that is enough where the interest on that should in theory cover us for the liability of all the town employees who need medical, whatever. But if you don't fully fund it, you may have to pull from your principal, is effectively like where we sit.
Solid analogy.
Yep.
Does that
Yep.
make more sense?
I got it the first
Okay.
time, but
Yeah, like, but
if you wanted to double
that's where
down on
like,
it, I got
that's where
that
the
time too.
16 versus 70. It's not like 16
Yeah.
means like we have a $50 million check we're gonna have to write
No,
someday.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep, that's right.
Is that strictly health insurance? Is there anything else stuck in there?
I think we're obligated under the law, the Medicare issue, but also I think we have to offer technically life insurance or like a policy. We have very few people that take it. I think that's antiquated in my opinion by now, but I think it's still on the books. So there still is like some obligation, but it's very de minimis.
So everybody that retires goes,
No.
Can, yes.
Eventually, that fund is a safety net to supply money into your operating budget someday when your operating budget is incapable of paying those skyrocketing healthcare costs. Because there's a retiree line item in the budget for people who are retired from the town and where we pay the healthcare.
And currently, there's no money coming out of that.
The
Okay.
OPEB trust, yeah,
Right,
that's correct.
Right,
That's
it's
correct.
just, it's just incoming, not outgoing.
Collecting
Yeah.
solid interest, actually. It's been collecting good interest, yeah.
Yes.
I always, and I ask you, when does
lot of people do.
withdrawing from it begin?
I know.
When you have an
Is there-
economic
is there a-
collapse.
Is there a threshold that
Seriously.
says, okay, go get it from here?
When we
Yeah.
had the OPEB trust meeting and I had the representative here who manages the fund, I said, when can we start using it? And they were like, nope, not yet. So I said, how many other municipalities are asking you the same question? Because we're all dealing with the same issue.
So technically we can now. But then if you drew down 2 million now, then your trust fund has 2 million less of the liability and you're rating your piggy bank for the future to pay now. So I think, depending on how people view it, you could. Legally, you can. It's, to Carrie's point,
I understood.
everybody that comes in, we ask the question every OPEB trust meeting that Carrie just said, and they go, no way, why would you do that? But
Have you beaten this to death?
nope.
One more thing.
One more.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a risk management guy, I'm just seeing the risk assessment complete on December 18th. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's a thing we just do every so often, obviously not an annual thing. I realize it's probably like a huge pain to like pull that together.
Yeah.
Do we think the one on file is still like materially accurate to
It's
the?
a very good question, John, I appreciate it. When I became CFO, when Linda Darling got promoted to comptroller, we brought in a deputy. Jamie said to us, we need to do a risk assessment. So we have reached out to our auditors, who also do this. We are in the works of getting one done. It is very time consuming, obviously, you understand. That person, they come in, they have to meet with every single department head, but it is in the works, and I have to budget for that expense.
Yeah.
Sorry, I will always come back to, that is another expense. So, it will definitely be done, and it's on our radar.
Yeah.
That was a priority of Jamie's for us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, pre-pandemic, we were saying every 5 years. And then everything, changed, and we're probably due for one. But also during our audit presentations and, it's like it's kind of like Carrie said, you're gonna end up paying another 40, 50, 60, 70,000 to do something the auditors are already doing and giving us basically no management letters, no side letters, there's no letters coming in with any recommendations for correction. Carrie's hitting the wood. But, so it's kind of like, okay, is that a good use of money or not? I think you see some things in the risk, I'm assuming you looked at it. You know, there are things in here like the elected town clerk, there are some things in here that haven't been done, that were low risks, but are still risks. And I think what you'll see if we did another one is stuff like that, right? As opposed to financial checks and balances and things of that sort.
Yeah, makes sense.
I have another question. So, when we talk about raising revenue, right, so the budget, we're in trouble, we have to bring in more money, and I will argue later that we also maybe need to start looking at what we can cut. I know that that's sad, but we're adults. So, when we talk about raising revenue, who, like, comes up with where do the ideas, how do those ideas get put into place? Like, who says the idea? And then how does that idea become a thing? And how do we get the ball rolling on these ideas? My primary example, I think, would be, and Ryan and I had talked about this, when we talk about like, well, here's an idea, we could sell a bunch of our town buildings that we aren't using anymore. And I feel like I hear that come up a lot, but it kind of just like, blah, 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 fizzles out. Like, it never really gets any traction, and I wonder why, first of all. And second of all, what can we do about getting that traction?
Great question. So, you know, obviously the last council, you know, could have made some of those decisions, and for whatever reasons they didn't.
The last council, town council?
Yeah, last town
Okay.
council. You know, I think some of it is like, you know, the schools had to do the redistricting, they had to go through a declaration of surplus property. There's obviously a lot of laws on the books relative to municipal assets, because it's an asset. We did do an executive session in February to go through all these parcels. They weren't all labeled on the agenda, but most were. So they did talk about Davis there, they did talk about Parmenter, they did talk about Beaver Street, the recreation facility. I can't fully disclose all those, but they're all on the council goals for the year, as making some movement on those. So I think you will see some decisions. I hope I'm the first one, but also when you do these, you know, as you can imagine, it is anywhere but simple. And the reason why it's not simple is these are municipal assets that are worth a lot of money, and there's going to be divergent opinions in the community on how to do this. So for example, Davis there. Doesn't a request for proposals go out that allows a developer to knock over the building? And once you say yay or nay, then you go down another path of other questions. So if you don't knock over the building, and you say you can use the building, you have to keep the building, but you can keep the facade, right? But we know there are ways to develop Davis there into housing or other space without knocking the building over. However, that comes with a lot of money. So what you can use that for, what's the appetite for that? The market will show whether anybody wants to bid on a project like that. There are old schools like Davis there that have been on the chopping block in other towns for 10, 20, 30 years that just sit there because they go out to bid and the market does not demand any investment in that building because the building should probably just be knocked over. Then if you do the building knocked over, take that brain for a minute. Well then, are you going to use current zoning? Maybe so, maybe not. If you do, in this case, it's single family 4. So no housing developer is going to buy that lot for big money, and it's not bringing out the most yield in that parcel because it really can only have single family houses built on it, right? So then you say, well, is there another zoning code that you want to attach to that RFP to give bidders the clear understanding that if they bid on this property, then they're gonna be able to build 2, 3, 4, 5 stories. Are they gonna be forced to have retail on the first floor, housing second, third, fourth, fifth, you know? And so there's different ways that you do an RFP. Those are extraordinarily complicated. They have to be done almost perfect, because anybody who doesn't have a fair bid then can complain to the Inspector General, do a bid protest, and you may have to go to court for these types of things. So it's something that has to be done very carefully, very conscientiously, and with, you know, some level of, I would just say at least supermajority support from an elected body to say, well, 7-2, you know, I agree that we should knock the building over. I don't agree we should knock the building over, right? So there's different strategies and different ideas with both. And I have to say it, and I feel, again, like a broken record, and I feel like I'm just whining, but, you know, I don't have an assistant town manager. We lost another person down in the planning office that normally would be involved in this. I have no economic development coordinator, and I only have one person that does procurement and purchasing, and I have a part-time attorney. So the staff bandwidth of being able to put all of these together is extraordinarily complicated and time-consuming, and has to be done properly. Most likely what I think is gonna happen is the town will have to go out to bid once or twice or maybe 3 times on different conditions with that property to find out where the market is. We did one non-binding one last year. We did get a few proposals. They were like kind of cool sketches of what could be. It kind of gave some indication of what was out there. But to your point about raising revenue, I would hope that the main community goal would be to bring in as much money to the highest bidder on those parcels. But while I may say that, or you may agree, or somebody else, other people are gonna want to preserve the building. Other people are gonna not wanna put the money into that building. It could take us a year, or it could take us 6 months to put out a bid, and then maybe we get a bidder, but maybe upon entering into a contract and a purchase and sale, they bow out. You know, there's a lot of different steps involved with getting rid of surplus property. And truth be told, this was a big reason why my predecessor, and I'm looking at Steve for just like peer support. But this is why my predecessor, you know, and everybody was onto the redistricting stuff 10, 15 years ago, because, you know, it takes a long time to shed a school building like that. It just takes a long time. Sorry if that was too long. I don't know how else
Did
to
you get
synthesize
your
it. I'm doing the
answer?
best I can, Shannon.
That was a great historical view on that. I just wonder, it does take a long time, like a marathon is a long race.
That's right.
But you have to, if you don't get off the couch,
Right.
like how do we get off the couch?
Well, they took votes,
Okay,
and I have direction, and now I have to find the time in my life to go somehow do all this. And that's, when you don't have people, things slow down.
So how do we resolve that, you know, like?
People?
there's-
Well, number one, we don't make cuts in the budget. Number two, seriously, we don't make cuts in the budget. Number two, we try to invest in people that can do this work, like an assistant town manager. I mean, like another person in the planning office or whatever. But again, that comes with, again, a debate about whether we should use free cash for these things. And just keep in mind, any surplus money you get from the buildings can't be used in the operating budget. So it's not gonna solve your budget problem. It may solve some of your capital needs problem. But even selling Davis Thayer is not gonna bring in anywhere near the revenue to pay for any of your other projects in total. You might be able to do some of your technology capital, maybe able to do some of the lower level capital, maybe some of the vehicles, maybe the Horace Mann roof. It will certainly get you something. But I don't think you're gonna get a windfall of 25 million or something on the Davis Thayer property. Because if you tear the building down, someone's gonna have to go dispose of that whole building. So that's gonna cost the developer easily $500,000 to dispose of that building, easily. So I mean, there's a cost embedded in all of that. But they did take votes. I do have direction. And it's like, I've got one working group set up internally for the recreation building. And I need to find another working group with the same people on the Davis Thayer one, and I just haven't had time to be able to put it on the calendar and get people in a room to start strategizing about how we're gonna put out an RFP or a series of RFPs on this and try to get the ball rolling. So I think,
we're off the couch.
and then also,
Yeah.
Oh, we're off the couch. Oh, we've been off, yeah. And then also, there'll be a public meeting at some point where this council's gonna have to issue that RFP by statute. So, you know, at some point, I would anticipate best case scenario, maybe over the summer. Probably more likely the fall, for either or, either the rec center or the Davis there. It's just an educated guess, somewhere around there. Okay.
Jamie, 2 follow-ups. So, you're good, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Like, yes, I hear you on like, you can't use that money. But it is also a barrier, in theory, to adding property that could be permanently revenue generating. So like, the beer after the marathon isn't Davis there, it's the new building that gets built there and runs a cannabis shop, or has 300 people living there, or who knows what, that we can argue about for the next 10 years about whether we like the development that's there now, and we can, you know, argue about that. But like, that is the actual like cash cow at the end of this, you know, this effort, right?
Right.
It's not the like sale of the building. That's kind of like, just get it off our hands. It's putting something valuable there.
Right.
Do you have the ability, like on that front, do you have the ability to, instead of an RFP, do an RFI? To effectively say like, we don't want to set the parameters that developers want to be interested, and then ask if they're interested because of those parameters. But instead ask the developers to tell us what parameters would make this attractive to them.
Yep. We did, well, 1, it's been done. 2, we could do that in a different format than what we did before, and try to tell us what they think. Because we didn't do we specifically made the first one not a financial piece. And that very well may be, when I get my working group together, I would guess that very well could be a step that even some of the staff think is a good idea, because you're spot on. Like, tell us what you want to do with the building or the property, and what does that look like? Absolutely.
Because like, I just feel like for the council, and I'm, you know, not trying to overthink for them, but like, the decision is a lot harder when every hypothetical is on the table. But if you have no idea who's behind each of those hypothetical doors, you could pick one with no one. But if you know that there's only 3 doors to choose from, like, suddenly it becomes a much more A, B, or C, instead of let's argue about the facade or not the facade. If nobody is willing to buy it, if they have to keep the facade, then you don't have to debate that.
Well, that's not, here's the part of the problem. From the original RFI we did, there were people that were willing to invest in the building conceptually with the facade.
Sure.
But even beyond that, like even beyond that, I'm going to guarantee you the vast majority of people want the building knocked over. A developer would rather take that down, start fresh. That's a $30 million upgrade in that building. You know, there are developers like Penrose, a couple of the people that did bid on it. Even, I think, the Dean College proposal with, I think it was Mr. Chafee, right? They came in and said they could do something with the building. But if you went outside, you know, if you went offline out into the hallway and did a poll of probably 10 developers, you'd get probably 10 out of 10 that would said, knock it all over, give us the 3.5 acres, give us density, right? Which is a fairly unpopular thing right now. Also, I'll say it, appealing across the street is the same situation that you're with, right? It's certainly due process within everybody's rights. It's not me critiquing the decision, but that's just another year or 2 delay. And I think this is the point about NIMBYism. If people don't want things built in their backyard, that's fine. I respect those opinions. But there's a cause and effect to this. So you're right. The beer at the end of the marathon, you know, you could do that. But I think easily 10 out of 10 developers would say, give me a fresh plot of 3.5 acres, give me the most density you can, right? And so downtown commercial may end up being the zoning change that people want, but they also have to expect that when that property is sold, the neighbors are probably not going to be happy if it's a 5-story building. So then what do we do? So this is where leadership comes in, and unfortunately, some people just have to be, you know, the council at some point is going to have to be in a leadership position to say what's the best value we can get within whatever the community is comfortable with. Is it 3 stories? you know, the retail on the first floor is probably gonna be dead, because the retail industry is dead on the first floor type stuff. But if you did 3 stories of housing, 4 stories, with no restrictions either, no affordability restrictions, no preference for veterans or seniors, like, I'm not saying that that's not a good idea, it's just if you're looking for market level revenue and bringing in the most money, you're gonna have to make all of those market rate and probably do 4-story buildings on Davis Thayer to make the best buck. So if the community is comfortable with that, and that's where the council decides to go, I mean, that's whatever the community decides. And eventually that's gonna probably bring in the most money.
I guess that's where, like, in my opinion, the RFI comes in, and like, you could say through that to anyone interested, submit your top 3
Sure.
with the financials that go with it, right? Like, with the, hey, my number 1 option would be 25 stories high, you know, retail on the first floor,
Right.
you have to rezone it, and like, whatever, but the revenue to the town we expect would be X.
Mhm.
My number 2, you know, which I'm willing to do, but my theoretical bid is 20% less, right, for the property, but is I'll stay to 5 stories and no retail on the first floor or something like
Correct.
that. And my least my least option is I'll give you pennies on the dollar for what it's worth, but I'll keep the facade and, you know, build a whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised if if an RFI was decided by the working group to get that out on the street. I wouldn't be surprised, but, you know, once I get that team together in the next few weeks and we start plotting things out, there'll probably be another executive session at some point, and we'll work with the council on trying to make those decisions. But it's certainly a great idea,
Awesome, thanks.
yeah.
I think it's time to.
I just have one follow-up question. It's really quick. It
Read the
depends on,
digest version.
it's very, I'm not the one that's verbose in this scenario, all right? Sorry, Jamie.
It's okay. No?
Record show.
So the.
All nice to me.
Let the record show. So, all right, just on the other side of that,
Yeah.
when you're doing your family budget, you may not be able to afford the Lexus, right?
Correct.
So you have to, you're gonna have to maybe go down to 1 car.
Correct.
So is there a scenario wherein we have all these, when the budget comes in, where we say, well, we'd also like your department to tell us where you can cut?
Yep.
Because that's real life budgeting. We can't budget like the federal government does.
Correct.
Where we say, we want all these fun things.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out how to pay for it later.
Sure.
That's, I feel like, the way that governments and even towns budget. I feel like we have to go from a personal finance model.
Yeah.
Where you don't get the Lexus that year, and instead you don't even get to have 2 cars. You now have to go down to 1 car. So what does that look like for your budget? Can we
Correct.
ask
Absolutely.
that
That's
to
the
tell
point
us
of the
what you
hearings.
cut?
At each one, when you talk to them, and I'm gonna tell you most of their answers. If you wanna get rid of my office supplies, okay. I'm not kidding. Like, if you read through the document I sent the 2 of you for last year's line by item, I would encourage both of you or all of you, go read that. Because it'll prepare you for this year's budget. There's not gonna be a lot that's gonna change in it. You know, I know Jen saw it when she was on the school committee for many years. Like, I just think, if you go through that FY26 budget book, find out from yourself where you think they're gonna cut. Is it professional development? Is it, you know, whatever, right? Because most departments, 80% of them, are 1, 2, 3, 4-person departments, right? Most of those come with government mandates, like the nurse in the Board of Health, the food inspection services of the Board of Health, animal control. Like, all those little things have, you know, they add up. You're really gonna come back to the big 5. And all roads lead back generally to the big 5, right? The schools, the DPW, police, fire, and facilities, generally. The senior center, you know, is like $650,000 out of the whole budget, right? The library, we know we're only $20,000 over the state law, right? Or we have to go on a waiver list. So once you peel that onion back, you'll realize there aren't really a significant amount of choices on where to cut. But you can ask them, every single department is part of a standard questionnaire. If you were to cut X amount of dollars right now today, what would you do?
And would they be prepared for
And I've
that?
already written that out last August. I wrote out a whole menu of what those cuts would be.
Yes, to answer your question, departments are prepared.
Oh, they're totally,
They would be
100%.
prepared to say what they.
100%.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah. You're not gonna get, like, but I just preparing, I don't think you're gonna get answers that are gonna say, you know, we're gonna cut the social service director at the senior center, or 2 librarians, or 2 more cops. You know, it's gonna be hard for them to answer those questions, because this gets back to the other point, to the Lexus analogy. I said it at a meeting recently, I can't remember which one. You're gonna find that there's really only gonna be a couple choices. You're really either gonna have to, the council's gonna eventually have to say, we're gonna have to probably go for an override at some point for something, or we need to set the expectations with the public that this year is not a Lexus, and we need to set the expectations with taxpayers that the 3rd ambulance will not be here, the senior center will be cut, you know, we will go under MAR for the library, and, right, and, or you're gonna get, if you cut 2 more police officers, you're gonna lose the SROs and the therapy dogs. So like, once you get into that, it's okay if that's what the community choice is, right? But what can't happen, again, is we make cuts, people are really upset at those cuts, and then expect all of us to double the work up on our plates and just fill the gap for all those cuts.
Absolutely not.
Because,
Agreed.
because that's really crippling our organization right now, and including, like, how do we sell all the buildings, right? Like, I mean, there's only so much bandwidth,
Yes.
right? So, but the public needs to understand that if those cuts happen again, you know, the signs on the door are gonna say, not home right now, right? And if they don't get responses back for emails, if they don't get customer service calls back, if they don't get this, and those people come to the council and complain that they didn't get a call back within a day, we need to set that expectation with the public and say, you may not get a response back for a few days from somebody because we just don't have the bandwidth and staff. So I think those are really ultimately the 2 choices the community is gonna have. I couldn't agree with you more, Shannon.
Just,
May I say something?
yeah.
I was, Stephen Arnold, 520 Maple Street. My friend told me that I don't know what percentage of people there are in Franklin, but there are squatters. And I know you said that the vacant properties came up for a vote, but it wasn't resolved with the Board of Health and things. And even in my neighborhood, there's a house that I could think that would be a danger, or someone would get hurt, or the expense of putting out a fire, or maybe the insurance could, from the town, could compensate for the demolition of the structure, or say it's a hazard, or, and some of it is an eyesore, and junk is in the yard, and I think that's a law, you have to get rid of junk cars, and I'm just thinking it would be more appealing to a developer if the property was resolved. But also, I'd like to add that today I was listening to BZ, and today was Agriculture Day in Boston, and I understand that Mrs. Sweeney was appointed Agricultural Commissioner in Franklin, and I think there was a woman who volunteered from Rhode Island to be on the Agricultural Department. I never heard much more about it. And I'm a volunteer in the garden club at the senior center, and I made the list, and I feel good about volunteering there, and I think maybe if people volunteered and took it on their own initiative to look into these things, it would help out in the long run without too much worry. And I'm glad, because it might take one of my tax bills away, and I was happy about that, and it's a good feeling to give back and be productive. But I like that expression, we've gotten off the couch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Sherlock, Dr. Magnolia, Community Information Director, Franklin Matters, Franklin Public Radio. 3 points, if I recall correctly. In respect for the newness of many of the community members, committee members, excuse me, it's not bad, and it's actually good in our second year point in terms of kind of splitting up the fiscal policies, because the other benefit of you spending some time is anybody watching now comes with you and learns that, and comes up to the same level. There's nothing wrong with that, because there's an awful lot of learning, there's an awful lot of misinformation, lack of understanding outside. And to the extent that you can help, and you're in a unique role, fiscally helping the town council, which is really the decision maker, yes, but under the circumstances of their newness, and they're still figuring things out, you can help them from a fiscal perspective with the appropriate recommendations, as certainly the recent experience of the fire truck, et cetera. So that was one. Risk management, if I remember correctly, was in the last management letter. After that, all management letters have been clean. Prior to that, there was always some action items in the management letter. So I think it was 2014, 15, 16, something in that ballpark, asked or requested us to do the town, to do a risk management study, which has been done, as Jamie mentioned. So from a point of perspective as to where it was, because I also have a risk background too. Where was I going for the third one? OPEB. So when I first started doing this, 2007, 2008, closed the first overrides, but OPEB was this big honking gorilla, elephant in the room all the time. People were worried about it. It was going to destroy us tomorrow. That happened until about 16, 17, I think it was a year or two just before Jeff stepped back, the realization that the Norfolk County Retirement Fund would actually get fully funded before. Granted, the times have changed, because I think it was going to be in the 2030s. Now I think it's, 2036 or a little later? But then the funds that go to fully fund that can get reapplied to OPEB. Whew. That 75 whatever million now can get eaten away a lot quicker. But it's still going to take us a time to get there. But, so the other point in reinforcing the point I mentioned in regards to your role, especially asking questions, great questions, you need some of that history behind. So the RFIs, the RFPs that was done at Davis Thayer, I can send you the link of the Davis Thayer minutes. There was a recommendation, the council has sat on it because of a number of dominoes. Right, so the police station building decision, Davis Thayer or Parmenter. So they couldn't move on Davis Thayer because there hadn't been a decision. There still is not a decision. The odds are, from my looking at it, it's going to be Parmenter because it doesn't fit at Davis Thayer. So yes, they're off the couch, but they're not very far down the road. If they go to Parmenter with the police station, Parmenter also has capacity for recreation, so the recreation building can go. And once you build a new police station, the old police station can go. But all of those, again, operational revenue, no. You'll have some savings in operation that no longer need to support those buildings, but all that other revenue goes to capital. And yeah, we've got a bunch of capital needs, so that'll help there too. So I think that was 4 points instead of 3, but glad to help. And if you need any other kind of historical perspectives, feel free to ask. Thanks.
Okay, I'll ask again, are we done?
On policies, anything else on policies?
Policies. How
Are we
much?
splitting them?
I was just gonna ask for clarification,
Yeah, thank
Jen.
you.
Am I bringing this back on May 28th?
I would say April.
Oh.
I would do it at one of the budget hearings, like at the end of the budget.
The policy stuff?
Yeah.
Are we getting input from the council? Will
No,
we-
you give them
No,
input.
you give them the input.
Well, I understand that, but the reality is that they're gonna have their opinions and they ought to be included.
After you have yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the recommendation.
I don't, does anybody recommend any substantive changes to any of these, other than some amounts?
Well, I have to go back and dig deep. I didn't have
That's fine.
the
Understood.
information, to
I
be
know.
honest.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm
So
unprepared.
I am gonna put it
You're not
on one of the agendas. I just haven't determined which one.
Fine.
Just based on history, the first night is general operating, and then there's school, so just have to figure out which night would work best. But you will all have it in plenty of time.
Okay, shall we move on to grants?
Yes. So thank you for this. It was one of the proposed agenda items, was to get some information on grants. So what we did with the help of Linda Darling, our comptroller, and Jana Malati, the school business administrator, they helped me put together a summary of all of our grants for the past 10 years. I put together a quick slide just because it's a presentation. You should have received, and I can send the summary of all the grants in Excel
I got it.
to all of you, just so you could have that as well. Linda and Jana are here just to kind of answer any questions that I may not be able to. So grant coordination, one of the things that Jen asked was what comes first? Do they have a capital request or a project and then look for the grants? Basically, yes. We have a need and all of our department heads go out and look for grant opportunities. And this is federal and state grants as well. Sorry, it's a little different laptop for me. Once the department finds a grant that they feel will fit in with what their needs are, they review that and bring it to Jamie's attention, as well as the finance department. As in the school side as well, that whole process takes place. We have to make sure that all the grant information is also audited. Federal grants is a massive, massive audit. We have to document and everything, and we provide all the details on that, and that is actually a single audit, so that's in addition to the audit that is done. So we're very diligent with the department heads when they are awarded a grant. Obviously, the purpose of grants is to supplement for municipal projects. It reduces relying on property taxes or tax revenue. It supports infrastructure, public safety, environmental. We leverage, again, our department heads do a lot of work to look for any type of funding that they can find. This, again, is just reiterating that it's, the department head does a grant identification. They go in, they do the application process, and then they're awarded the grant, and then they inform the town administrator and the finance department that they have been awarded. As I stated earlier, the ongoing management of grants is done by Linda Darling, our comptroller on the town side, and Jana Malati on the school side. They track all awards that are given. The other important thing that we have to make sure that we're tracking is if it's a reimbursable grant, I have to make sure that department head is asking for the money because we can't keep carrying a deficit. We want to make, so we reach out to them and say, okay, you've had expenses, have you asked for reimbursement?
Oh, so, always.
Some of them are.
Okay.
These slides here is just a quick summary of what the numbers are, I think, very impressive. This is basically a quick summary of all the grants for our 10-year historical. So, 10 million a year is a great thing that we use for a town and schools. Some of the examples of the grants that I want to highlight, some of them I want to highlight because I think you'll get an understanding. So the Beaver Street Interceptor is a state revolving fund with the Mass Clean Water Trust. Our interest rate is 1.5%, and that is because we are a green community, and that is something that Jamie worked very hard on when he in his first few years.
Housing choice.
Housing choice,
Sorry.
I'm
I
sorry,
think
not
it-
green.
Yeah, housing choice. Sorry about that.
So, but he still worked hard on that.
Did that too, yes.
Yes.
Right.
The water treatment plants, the improvements to them is also an SRF loan. The electric charging stations that you see before you, that was a grant. Public safety, FEMA, as you know, the jail diversion program. We have the SAFE grant. planning, a new one that just came out is the Franklin Ridge. You've heard a lot about that. That's also through that. The New Style Cleanup, we just got a grant in for the 250th committee. That's a state grant. The Veterans Memorial Walk, if you go to the Common, that beautiful path, that was a grant. So I'm just trying to highlight a lot of these things, and then, of course, there's the school grants, and I am not, John is way more up on the school-type grants, but you know Circuit Breaker. I'm sure you're all aware of that. So, this is just a chart showing the summary of the grant data over the last 10 years. Like I said, myself, Jana, and Linda, I are here to answer any questions that you may have. And I know that was a quick presentation, but I think the numbers are what you're going to ask.
I have a question.
Okay.
I just looked it up, so I'm wrong, I think. But I'll ask anyway. Originally, when Ashland built their police station / fire station,
Oh.
there was a promise from the state of a $25 million grant, which I thought had happened. It did not, because Charlie Baker refused to put it in his budget in 2020. Would it be worth asking?
No. It's actually wasn't a political issue. It was more about, there was no authorizing state law that allowed municipal buildings to get a amount of money for a purpose like that. I think it went through a pretty robust legal review, and I think there was either a disagreement, some sort of consensus. It wasn't just that he didn't want to fund the money. I think that was part of it, but it wasn't Ashland. It wasn't the Senate President's district. I'm familiar with that fire station because I worked in Hopkinton for years, and we had a deal on making a fire station in between Hopkinton and Ashland in a regional center. Unlike MSBA for schools, there's a very specific set of statutes and a formula as to how school facilities are built, but there's nothing for municipal facilities like police stations, fire stations, and there is legislation. I doubt it'll pass, I don't know, but there is legislation that many lawmakers have filed to try to create a similar thing to MSBA for fire and police stations and town halls and stuff like
So
that.
that doesn't exist, there's no comparable.
Nope.
It's actually bigger than our police station, but.
Right.
Questions, guys?
But I can go last.
Anybody?
It's just from a process standpoint, how do you know that we have like the full universe of grants, that we're looking at the full universe of grants? Like, the way I'm thinking about this is like, is there some sort of registry or database for things that are available to town government? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we have certainty that we've basically seen everything that exists. It's not like, oh, we didn't look at this one source we didn't know of and we missed out on X, Y, Z.
Through all of our associations, you know, Carrie's part of the auditors and general government folks, the treasurer collectors, you know, Doug's part of the water and sewer groups, you know, Brutus is on all of them, Derek's on stormwater emails. I mean, each fire chiefs and all of them are in the fire world with EOPS. We have, you know, frequent meetings with state officials. Obviously, when a federal law is passed, like the bipartisan infrastructure bill, you know, we all get briefings from Congress, we get briefings from the MMA, we get briefings from our individual associations. Here's the, you know, the 100-page version instead of the 1,000-page bill. We generally pour through all those right when they come out, but it's specific, like the town engineer is gonna look at complete streets, roadways, stuff like that, right? You know, and then there's probably some general ones that Carrie's on, that I'm on, that probably encompass all of it. So we usually do a pretty good job. And they do a really good job also not applying for grants we know we're not gonna be competitive doing.
Yeah.
You know, SRF loans right now, unfortunately, they changed the rules. Now everything's loaded up towards PFAS. So because we were far ahead on this, we now score low. All the federal money that came out of the infrastructure bill prioritized that, so like we're not gonna be as eligible. Also, a lot of grants are dependent on community median income. So because we score high, because we're a high income town, I know that doesn't feel that way, I'm not saying everybody has high income. I know I'm gonna get yelled at sometime tomorrow about this, but because our median income is pretty high, most grant programs are skewed towards communities who don't have the ability to pay. And so a lot of stuff we're not gonna be eligible for.
Yeah, so I guess we have confidence that
The confidence is that we scour everything, we
Yeah.
apply for what the high percentage plays are, and, we try to go after the ones that are best, what we kind of call best practice grants. So like MassWorks for infrastructure, we're a green community, right? We're a housing choice community, we're a complete streets community, we've done all the policy work, so we get more points. Community Preservation Act, we get like +2 points on a lot of applications. So all of that stuff is usually stuff that we go after because we can usually get money back, pretty well on those things.
What's the lift from like an administrative standpoint applying to these things? Is it significant?
I'd say the biggest lift is actually the onerous requirements from the state on how to actually report all this. The application is actually not that hard because most of our town, I would love it if the state had one portal, but of course, they don't. Thank you for laughing, Jen, because I'm sure you suffer through this too. Every agency has a different portal, because God forbid we have one portal. So all of us have to register in different portals. I'm in 60 portals. But for DPW, they have their accounts so applying for them is not actually that onerous. Managing the contractual process, the reporting, that is what is very cumbersome. The Department of Public Health at the state level makes you take a class. Gross. It is the most ridiculous, bureaucratic bunch of nonsense and waste of time ever. But it's hours of Linda's time, it's hours of Jana's time, it's hours of, that's hours for us to go in, we gotta send a report and all this stuff, and that's the cumbersome part of grants, is really the reporting and the contractual piece of it. That sometimes takes months just to do that, but applying for it's not too bad. The federal government is very hard to apply for, the federal government, for sure.
Okay.
Are there any grants at the moment that the town is worried about that may be expiring next year?
I'm gonna ask Jana and Linda to come join me up here.
Yeah, Jana probably has the
To
biggest
answer
list.
that question.
Yeah, the school cuts are probably the biggest.
The federal is definitely something that Jana keeps her up at night. So, but I'll let her.
I don't think she sleeps.
What?
Who?
Caffeine,
Come. Introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jana Melotti, the school business administrator for the Franklin Public Schools. Can you repeat your question, please?
Just asking about grants that the town is concerned about, which may be expiring next year.
So we have entitlement grants, which are the title grants and the special education grants. We did receive confirmation that we are continuing to receive those grants next year. However, the title grants, Title I, we should be expecting a decrease of 15%. So this year, we were awarded $162,000. So you take about 25 to 30K out of that. So that's what we are working on our projections for next year. The special education grants, we did not receive any indication that there will be cuts.
That's a good question.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a few for.
Okay. We'll just go right down the line.
So-
She asked, so she'll go right.
Yeah.
I swear we can shovel the seats whenever.
No, I'm fine.
Um,
I talk too much.
So I think this was kind of answered, but I just want to make sure I heard the answer correctly. It's like, do we have grants that we are, I'll say for staffing reasons or otherwise, sort of leaving on the table that we otherwise might be able to pursue and get some portion of? Or do we feel like we've pretty much gotten everything we think we could get?
I'm going to speak, and then Jamie can chime in. I am not aware, no department head has come to me and says, there's this grant, but I don't have time. I don't know if you have ever,
I would say, and I mean this genuinely, I am nervous about all grants with the income tax repeal. I'll guarantee you, virtually, because I know the state budget extraordinarily well, guarantee you that the vast majority of grant programs that we tap into will be mostly gone if that gets repealed down from 5 to 4%. I also want to acknowledge and understand that affordability is a big concern for a lot of people, and that, you know, if I were sitting here today, I'd say that ballot question probably has a pretty good shot at passing, and I don't blame taxpayers for that message. But specifically, the biggest concern to me is MassWorks grants. But jail diversion program, which we were subsidizing our mental health clinicians for many years, that would be a couple that we have routinely been able to be very successful at. The MassWorks one is huge because, for example, all of Grove Street was redone, not all of it, but the bottom half of it, and all that infrastructure was done through a MassWorks grant after a planning board project was approval, and so that gave us a great leg up, and we were very successful. I think that was like 2.3 million, and then NETA contributed 900,000 in mitigation money for all that. The lieutenant governor even came here at the time, Polito, to do a presentation. You know, as we become more affluent, both in land value and in median income, we're losing our capacity. Not only is our state aid flatlined, which you should listen next Wednesday, cheap plug to the Department of Education, who's going to be here to give a presentation on Franklin's hold harmless and Chapter 70 numbers. But we also become, not everywhere, but we become less likely to get grants because we have the ability to fund that through our local budget. Now, we may, I know that sounds crazy to us right here, but the state views it that way on a lot of their criteria when they're scoring grants. So, and then also the other big concern I have is fire safety grants at the federal level. We've relied on that quite a bit. Chief McLaughlin and the entire fire department did a great job on that for a long time. I think he got, in his tenure here, $3 million worth of grants, and a big bulk of that was federal money. That also relieved a lot of capital funds on the radios and some other stuff. The radios was a pretty big number on the radios. Those would be the handful that come to mind right off the top of my head.
Sorry, I think I maybe didn't ask the question the way I meant to. I'm more asking, like, if we were to hire like a grant writer,
Right.
is there more money that like we think is on the table and they might bring in 2 million but only cost 125 or 140K? Or are we like already applying to all the grants we think make sense through the department heads, and we don't actually have need for, like, it's not like if we had another, you know, a deputy town administrator, we could do more. This is not that. This is we already applied to all the stuff that we want to.
My apologies. Yes, if a grant writer, in my view, is not a priority, and the main reason why is you've got one person centralized around grants who would then have to call the fire chief to find out what's the best grant. Now I got to call Brutus to find out what's that. So you get a generalist. In my view, it's generally a waste of money because you've already got the knowledge capacity in the departments. But you went down that road. But Amy, when she was here, and certainly when I was here, you know, the deputy town manager certainly brought in more than their money's fair share of salary with grants, and you can see them on the sheets. I mean, even when I was here, I did the entire LED streetlight conversion for free. That was like 4 years of my salary's worth of money that I brought in there. So to your point, if you bring in more department level staff, there may be opportunities where we could, Corey Shea, great example, the Director of Arts and Cultural Development, right? She's brought in well over half of her salary in grant funding through arts councils and a variety of other little things. It doesn't jump off the page, but it's 15 grand here, 8 grand there, 5 grand there, $500 there, right? So to your point, if you were going to invest in trying to get more grant money, my recommendation would be to get into more department knowledge-specific staff to try to do
Sure.
that. I think we apply, or we look at most stuff, and departments do a pretty good job trying to, get out of whatever we can apply for within the bandwidth we have. So I'll leave it there.
And I guess, yeah, I'm certainly, like, grant writer was just a way of communicating
Yeah.
the question,
Yeah.
but like, I guess I'm not proposing that we would bring someone, or suggesting that we would bring someone to apply for grants that we don't currently apply for, to pay for stuff we don't currently pay for, because that's kind of a net nothing. In fact, that might put us in a bad spot next year, because now we have this money we're used to, that if we
Correct.
don't get the grant, we have a problem, because
Correct.
we got used to something. It's more like, do we have things we're paying for in our current operating budget that might be eligible for grants, but they're very hard grants to apply for because the scoring is, you have to write a certain way, or like just something that we don't have trained staff to do, and we just know we won't win because we don't have the cycles to spend on it, versus like, well, we don't get free flower pots on all the sidewalks because we didn't apply for the flower, but we don't need them either, so
Yeah.
cool.
Nothing jumps off the top of my head, but this might be another question, I think, to Shannon's question earlier. Bake this into your questioning when all the departments are here for the budget hearings. Make these two thoughts you brought up as like kind of standard questions for everybody, right? What would you cut? What can you cut? What happens if we cut? And then also, are there grants out there that you can think of that can supplant current revenue streams that we would consistently need? It's a good question.
Okay. Because I think it's a revenue straight to our, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think this was also kind of answered, but I want to make sure I, again, got the answer
Okay.
right. The project alignment and grant timing, like, do we need to have the project first and then we go look for grants? Or are we scouring grants that are out there and then saying, well, we weren't going to fix, XYZ road this year, we were going to do it in 2 years, but there's a grant right now that we could apply for that, like, might accelerate that program. Like, are we,
Yep.
I assume we're looking at the grant, applying if we can think of anything in the next 5 years that it might make sense for, and maybe pulling that in.
We're doing both.
Okay.
There's no doubt. I mean, I have to commend our department heads. They're out there. They have their staff looking because they want to do their job. So they understand the budget issues, so they're out looking for any other type funding. So again, some of it's, a little bit of both,
Okay.
if that answers.
It does,
Okay.
yeah. And then I had two, like, specific grant questions that came out in one of the MMA emails. There was one on feedback signage, and I don't know if we applied. It's like the speed limit signs that tell you your speed instead of just are there and everyone ignores. Like the ones, I think Medway has them and they're fairly effective in front of the schools. I think we
We have a few
had
too.
some, we've had a number of changes to the ones outside of Lincoln or
Yeah.
Keller.
That's
Right, like they used to flash at a certain time and then they were, like, they've been all different, but I didn't know if we even applied to that grant.
It's a good question. We'll have to ask the chief this year. In the past, we have the one at Parmenter. There's been a few that we've been awarded. I'd have to see if he applied in the last
Yeah.
couple of years.
Okay. And then there was a particular one that came out that was about road paving. And like, every town near us was listed in there, and it was like over the next 3 years, there was gonna be grants to all the towns around us, and I just noticed that we weren't listed. So I was curious if we applied and got denied, or didn't apply for a particular reason, or just didn't, I
Well,
don't
what's
know,
the,
missed it.
could you give a little more than road paving?
Yeah, I have the link here. State awards 50 million for road paving to 34 municipalities to pave 217 miles of road. I don't see like a grant number or
It's
something.
in the MMA bullet. I circulate it every week.
Ryan did his homework.
I mean, this was
That's
like
great.
months ago. I mean, it was like,
Oh.
it was not like last week. It was like, I don't know, when I joined. It was the first time I
Yeah.
had trouble with the open meeting law and sent an email to everyone. And then I got 4 emails back saying you can't do that.
Who were the winners?
Yeah, because it's the smaller towns.
So,
Right.
Bedford, Carlisle, Cummingham, Harwich, Kingston, Leominster, Norfolk, North Adams,
Okay.
Plimpton, Salem, Uxbridge, Westfield, West Hampton, West Stockbridge, Williamstown, Worcester,
Well-
and Worthington. We're
Most of
all-
those are my guess is, what threw me for a loop is Leominster,
Salem,
and Salem.
yeah.
Well, that's the lieutenant governor's hometown.
Well, that was all
I wasn't gonna say that, I'm
2027.
just saying size.
And then like 2028 has a,
Yeah.
you know, a similar list that like includes Newton,
Can you just shoot me the email? Can you just
Yep.
shoot whatever you're looking at?
December 23rd.
Yeah. I'll take a look at it.
It's the December 3rd MMA.
A lot of times what they do with road projects, particularly through MassWorks, is, you know, if they have 300 million in funding and they'll get $1 billion worth of requests, I gotta give the state credit. I mean, they try to share the money around the state. So it's not like if you're the early bird, you get the worm all the time. And they do that so that the people with the Actons of the world who have tons of staff don't get all the money all the time, Andover, right? Who have unlimited amount of people to watch this stuff. So my guess is on a road paving, most of that money comes through Chapter 90, but there may be some disaster assistance to this, or there may be some other piece that I can try to help answer the question.
Okay, yeah, just curious. I mean, it lists the road,
Yeah,
In
is
each
this the
town.
route as well, Jamie?
so I didn't know if we just don't have an eligible road
That's-
or.
We may not, that's
We
what I'm
may not.
saying, there might be, after Chapter 90, after MassWorks, there's probably some like Complete Streets, there's other little smaller programs, like there's a rural roads program, there's like a disaster assistance fund they created after the FEMA got, you know, and they may have been eligible because of criteria that we weren't eligible for. But I'll take a look at it when you send over and I'll let you know.
Awesome. That's all I had.
Thank you.
I'll pass. I know,
Whoa.
shocker.
I think you have to say something about yielding your time.
Oh, yes, I yield my time back to the chair.
So I have a couple questions. One, no centralization for drawdowns. I heard you say that the department heads go out for reimbursement on the funds, so we don't have any system of centralization for drawdowns or funds for the grants?
So I just want to make sure I understand. You're
Yep.
talking about portals that we go out to?
Just in general, so you had just mentioned that, like, if they're using a receipts, then they go
Yeah.
out and get the money reimbursed. So that's by department, there's no centralized, I'm
Well-
assuming schools is centralized, right? You draw down
Well,
for
it's
your office.
centralized between the finance department. We're the ones that keep track of all, am I not understanding?
So the question is, who requests the reimbursement?
Oh,
Those are
the
requested.
department head.
So there's no
would-
centralization for that? They
No.
do it and then they submit it to you lovely ladies?
Correct.
Okay.
For the school department, it's different.
Yeah.
I reconcile every 2 weeks, I reconcile all the grants that we have.
Yep.
And I request the funds once a month.
Right, perfect, okay, I knew that. Amounts of entitlement versus competitive. So you gave us the grand total of grants over the course of the, sorry, Steve, over the course of the last 10 years. Do you have it broken down just by entitlement grants versus competitive grants and town versus school? Just so I could look at
I
that.
have, we broke it down town versus school, but I did not do entitlement. I would have to have an understanding of what you're looking, you might have a better,
Yeah, I do have that list.
Okay.
Provided to you guys.
it's more of a
It-
school?
yeah.
No, it's town too. I mean, because there's, like Jamie said, sometimes it's geared towards certain, so they're not competitive, they're entitlement, meaning they're for
Understood.
certain communities. So I would just be looking at that information, because, I mean, it looks different, right? Like entitlement ones, as long as you have a pulse and fill out the paperwork, you get it. Competitive ones obviously are creative writing and, you know, a different kind of element to it, which I think lends to what you were talking about with the work behind it.
So I'd have to go back and,
Just curious.
Do that.
Yeah, just curious. Because when I look at the numbers, it looks like a lot of money, but I think a lot of the money is entitlement,
okay.
right? So I'm
understood.
just trying to figure out kind of what you talked about, like, is someone out there looking for those opportunities to kind of find that information? Where's my other questions? I have notes everywhere. So just to kind of go off of what was mentioned about the grants position, I know, Jamie, you said that you don't see the benefit because of the uniqueness of each grant that you would need to then tap into your departments anyways for that information. I do disagree a little bit, but just because I feel like if the amount of information they'd have to tap into for the department heads in order to write up the grant is probably a half an hour to an hour meeting. I think that it kind of lends to your point earlier about having a better sense of a centralized person to look for those opportunities, because, like you said, your departments are tapped, right? Your office is tapped. So, yes, you guys are looking, but you're looking in between all of your other jobs, right? So the time demand is becoming, an issue, right? So I do think that having someone who was, and I'm not suggesting a new position, so don't get excited.
I was gonna say, I was excited.
Yeah,
thought you were gonna
I mean, I
support a
do.
new
I think
position.
there's value in it, I do. Not until I see your entitlement versus competitive numbers, but my initial thought is there's value in it. Because the money that you're generating from those grants that you might not have gotten would pay for the position, right?
Right, well.
So, I
As long as
do,
it's not flower boxes, right? Like, as long as it's
Right.
something we were gonna do anyway.
right.
If you're gonna
So-
do a grants manager, you'd have it out of the DPW, because that's where you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck. The fire department wouldn't be useful, because the fire department already has.
Well, I wouldn't put it anywhere in like a department. I think it would be a shared school and town position, right, for any
Deputy
grants.
Town administrator.
I'll be happy, if Jonna supported a joint position, I'd be all with her, but those have never worked out in the past.
Well, maybe you just.
Because then you have two
people.
bosses, right? Then you have one person trying to split
I'm not
them.
the decision maker
I know,
here, Jamie.
I know you're not, Jonna.
Well, I think, I'm
Your
not,
support goes a long way, Jonna, like, you're the school business administrator, you hold the line.
Well, still.
yeah, I just
No,
think
the
that,
police department just got some bulletproof vests. if you need to.
I know,
She couldn't, she might be with it.
I think if there's a very defined, clear role, shared positions work, right?
They do.
I think
They
that that's, yeah, I think that having clear expectations and a shared vision of what that role is probably the bigger piece of a job not working. But I do think, like I said, that, depending on what the numbers look like for entitlement versus competitive, it may be something that we want to consider to do some of those projects ahead of time. So, yeah, we're not doing, the whatever till 2030, but this is coming up, so can we creatively write this to get this done sooner than later? So,
Okay.
just something to consider.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Actually, now I have one more because I've
Yeah.
looked through in that time. I'm not even afraid to ask. In 2023 and 2024, I see we got a genocide education grant. But then we stopped educating about genocide in 2025, or what? What is that?
The grant just phased out.
What was it?
It's, I'll have
Genocide
to get-
education, it was
yeah.
actually sponsored by Rep. Roy.
Yeah.
It was actually his bill.
And it was.
And it focused heavily on, I think, the Armenian genocide, as
Yes.
well as obviously all the other previous genocides.
Did we have to like adjust the
Right,
school
John?
curriculum to add something to it? for this?
Yeah.
we
It was to
usually-
establish. It was to, do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I know all kinds of fun facts. It was to establish curriculum, materials, resources, to embed that in the curriculum, because it wasn't part of it, or there was an attempt. I think at the time, I don't want to speak for Rep. Roy, because that's definitely not where I'm going with this, but I think that there was a concern about what was happening in the society, right? And that was his push for this? Yeah. And then, so the money was only 2 years because it was to establish curriculum and materials to embed in the content class. So it's not that we're stopped talking about it, it's
Sure, yeah.
check,
Okay.
all done. No, but I think that's what it was for. I think it was to establish programming and resources and materials, curriculum to align with that avenue.
I will double check all the
Yeah.
information and I'll send you all an email just clarifying everything.
That's, consider the question satisfied. No need to do any homework additional
Yeah.
on genocide. You do not need to Google or search your email. for
He's not
at all.
pro-genocide or anything, he's
Yeah.
not saying get it out of the curriculum. like that.
Genocide. I love seniors, I
Oh, yeah.
No,
like,
Jen is correct. It was a bill that, as you know, I think President Biden acknowledged the Armenian genocide. I think Rep. Roy had the bill filed for 10 years. There were a lot of advocacy groups that were behind that, particularly the Armenian communities in Massachusetts, that figured that there was really no education on genocide. And I think it was a one-time bridge grant to help the schools set up their structure. And then I think it would just phased out.
Yes.
Then it phased out.
Yeah.
Okay, we done?
I'm done. Thank you, George, for your patience.
You guys down in the outskirts here?
So can I, Mr. Chairman, so Jen, I just want, you asked for this, I just want to make sure, other than the entitlement versus competitive, anything else that
No, that
I
was it.
was
That-
not,
That was the
didn't
big
supply?
piece. Nope, it was the positioning and how we
Okay.
handle it, because, it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's not just applying, it's managing, it's doing the reconciliation, it's the drawdown.
Sure.
It's the end of the year reporting, depending on if it's state or federal,
Yeah.
it can be cumbersome. So for me, I was just trying to figure out how we do that without a centralized process.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
just wanted to be sure, yeah, thank you.
Future agenda items, I think it's pretty set. April 6, 7, 8, 9, is that still the right dates?
Yep.
No change there? May 28th, that's pending lots of stuff, right? The health insurance and,
Yep, that'll be the big, that'll be, I'm looking at, you got two. You got the 28th and 3rd. Those two meetings will be completely dominated by the change in the healthcare numbers, any budget revision numbers that needed to happen. We'll have all the updated assessments from Tri-County, the Aggie, animal control, you know, all the regional, the dispatch center, all of that stuff, so.
Animal control.
The 28th and the 3rd will be, you know, those will be the real deal meetings. And then hopefully y'all take a summer break.
maybe we can put them together? 28th and the
Well-
3rd.
Well, if you don't need the 3rd, you don't need to do it, but you should at least go through the 28th and see,
Okay,
you know.
just,
yeah.
So, can I just ask a
Sure.
clarifying question on this? So the town council,
Yeah.
at this time, is voting on the budget on June 10th.
That's what I'm
You're
anticipating. yeah.
Anticipating, so I have to have resolutions to the finance committee.
Probably the-
April or the 3rd?
No, probably, well, probably as a starter.
Yes,
But then probably, you'll probably want the 28th to talk about the numbers, and you'll probably want the 3rd to make more of a formal recommendation.
okay, John, I was just questioning.
that was my
5 days apart.
clarification.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot that's going to be thrown at you.
And then
Yeah.
we snooze for the summer.
Jamie's
We'll see.
Jamie's deputy administrator takes over for that period, right?
We'll, yeah.
Is there one in
He
this,
has so much to say.
So
is there a
see.
deputy in this budget?
It's in my, it'll be in my budget proposal, yeah.
Okay, that's,
There's your cut.
Who are you willing to cut?
Huh?
So where are you willing to cut?
0.
Nope, try again.
Nope, that's,
Nope.
you guys get the cut.
I have a
I
question.
know. It's-
council, we'll do,
Yeah.
gonna say council.
No,
Committee comments.
I just have a quick question. So, you're gonna give us the budget ahead of time for each department presentation, right?
On the 27th, the
Of what
budget will be,
month?
of this month,
Oh.
the budget will be released, and it'll
Okay.
be exactly the same as what you saw in February.
Okay. And then, should we send questions ahead of time? So like, you know how you said each department will come up and they'll answer any questions you have? So if there's something I'm looking for, right? Like if I'm looking for contracted services versus outsourcing, right? Shouldn't I give them a little heads up on this?
You can give it to me.
Okay, so I can send that to you? All right, perfect. Because I don't want to startle anyone, right?
I don't think you're gonna startle anyone.
Well,
We've been.
it's kind of you.
No, I don't think you're gonna startle anyone. I think people are just gonna tell you what they know.
Right, but
I mean,
that's
this
what I mean,
isn't.
if they don't,
right?
they're gonna have that information without me asking for it ahead of time.
Depends on how much you ask for, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, I
okay.
think most of it, I mean, again, we're, just for a little bit of like, just, you know, a recommendation is, remember, this is just the budget, right? If you
Yeah.
want other, you know, factoids or other information, those are good questions to bring to Carrie,
Yeah,
and she can work that, right? If
Okay.
you're looking for, you know, entitlements versus whatever, right, that type of thing. But entitlements versus other stuff on grants has nothing to do with the operating budget, right?
No.
It really has very little to do with it.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm just trying to make sure we are cognizant of time at all these hearings, that if you want to get through all the boards and committees, you want to get through all the departments, it's really important to focus on the numbers that are in the budget.
Yeah.
Like the staff, what the expenses are, and keep it, you know, revenues maybe,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that, so.
I'd like to just thank the gentleman that came to speak and commented on volunteerism.
Yeah.
I think that where we are in such a budget crisis, I always wonder how much more we could have that the community could be willing to give of their time. Where there's, if we have a volunteer bus brigade, I know there's a lot of bus problems. If we have, you see other towns being highlighted on the news and stuff about this group came together and they put this whole thing and they volunteered their time and they did this. Like this gentleman's a prime example of that, volunteering for the garden club, the things that the community could do where we have budget shortfalls, if we're allowed to put a group together to fill a gap
Yeah.
in something that we're losing a staff member, but maybe somebody with, risk management expertise is willing to volunteer an hour of their time, or there's a community attorney that's willing to, I think there's so many things that we could do with volunteerism that I don't know that people necessarily know how to get involved, or I don't think it's a reluctance of people to not do things. This gentleman's a great example. I just think when we're coming into this and we're trying to think of how we bring in money and how we cut things, I wonder if we could also think about who we could fill with volunteers for things like that. That's a third avenue of things could get done.
Are you offering free legal services?
No, I said a community attorney. I'm just saying, examples of things that people are doing. I do a lot of free legal work.
I bet you do. I bet you
The
do.
royal we, Jamie.
Huh?
Yeah.
Royal we.
No, I do plenty of free legal work.
I'm sure you do.
Comment.
That's my comment. I appreciate his comment, and I'd like to bring it
Good to
further.
go.
You should. Let's check.
Sure.
Either one of you.
All set for me?
All good.
Okay,
Motion.
accept a motion to.
2 hours.
Huh?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're shot.
We have the bulletproof vest, like I said.
Okay.
Okay, I'll wait for it.
Steve, unanimous.